Okay. We will begin as usual with the public comment period. If anybody has any comments? Hearing none, we will move on. First order, junkyard, a Jabba request to use town property.
Yes. So the owner of this new business in town, his name is Jay LaCroix. He couldn't be here tonight because he has a work commitment. And so he had called my office though because he is starting this new business. He's been working on it for a year or two now and has all of the correct permits and everything. And it is a mobile food truck essentially, but he only sells coffee, tea, kind of beverages, non-alcoholic beverages, and he wants to expand to do pastries and whatnot. But he called me because he wanted to know what the process was to use town property, whether he wanted to park on the common or anywhere around town, what that procedure would be to get approval from the select board. And I told him our procedure, and he said, well, I don't plan on having like set days where I'm gonna go out and do this. It's kind of a hobby business for him. So we wanted to have a conversation with you all about, how he can use his new business around town, but without imposing on town property, without your knowledge or permission.
Has he zoomed in this evening?
No, he has a work commitment.
Okay, then let's table that until he can be here.
Okay.
Could you just discuss, at least give this information to the Board of Health, so they might provide us with any information that they would have
Okay.
on this new kind of venture?
Yep.
I believe is his name spelled Lacorix?
Yep.
Okay.
My guess is that the food truck permit's something they get from the state and from the Board
It
of
may
Health.
be.
And then they're allowed to go wherever they can park legally.
Yeah,
It's a matter of if he can
That's
park
what I
on
would,
town property.
that's why I'd just like to know at the Board of Health in Barre, if we have to,
Right,
if
and
we
if-
have vitulers permit, or,
Yeah, and I don't think we have anything that covers that currently, so it'd be hard to charge them any fee.
yeah, well, I'm
So
not,
we
I'm not.
can-
I'm not-
hard
yeah.
to make a permit or anything.
Right.
I would
Yeah.
think in that situation, probably wherever he parks, and as long as it's a legal place to park his vehicle, stop his vehicle, registered vehicles is between him and the police and as the state roads.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that, but I don't think anybody can just pull up a truck in the middle of the town of Barre and start selling stuff.
If it's a legal place to stop, they probably can, but you can't stop in a state route. So you can't stop in 62, 32, 122. You can't
Well,
park in a state
I know,
route.
for example, if they wanted to come and park in front of the Congregational Church, which is not a state route, it's a very,
Right, in the
okay,
town parking
and start
lot
selling
areas.
food without the appropriate permits from the Board of Health, I don't think that that's legal.
That's what we gotta find out.
Yeah.
I think once you have the food truck permit, typically food trucks go, but they set up agreements with workplaces. Where they
Well,
might
that-
have 20
well,
workers, they come
yeah.
through the workplace and sell. But there's gotta be a permitting process through
Right.
the state and the Board of Health. And
I would-
once that's done,
I agree.
I don't think we have anything that gives us any authority to stop somebody from using the parking space in town as long as they're a legal vendor.
Well, yeah, as long as they're a legal vendor, but I would just be concerned with, the quality and cautions around food service.
Well, there's absolutely control over, I don't know what it is.
I don't either.
But
That's
there is
why I thought if the
control
Board of
over-
Health could give us some assistance with that, because I would, as you see, there's more and more food truck stuff happening here and there and
Oh, yeah.
everywhere, and so I'm guessing we should, if we had a plan, once we figured this out, that would be good.
Maybe that's something we'll put back on the agenda for our
Yeah.
next meeting and discuss it a little bit and
Okay.
get a little more into it. But let's table that then for now and move on to the broadband internet expansion and proposal.
Chris Lynch from Matrix is on his way. I'm Chip Poole, Chairman of the Broadband MLP Board in Petersham. You should be here momentarily.
Okay, we'll
Okay,
move
we'll
on
just
then and
move
come
on.
back to it. We'll do the 250th Committee Special Events Permit. That looks like it is complete, Jessica?
Yeah.
Correct. And we're just waiting for the vendors to provide the one-day liquor license, so we'll have that for the next meeting to approve.
Okay, but as far as the 250th Committee
But yes,
request to use the common and
Yep.
hold this event, we are ready to approve that.
correct.
Either of you have any questions or concerns before we move forward and vote on that? of course, their intent is to fundraise for the 250th anniversary. And, they should have all their sign-offs.
I would move approval of their request as described in their event proposal dated, that the event would be on October 2nd, 2021, to have a craft and food truck festival. I hope they have good weather. It would not be much of a festival, but move approval.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for approval of this event. Any further discussion? And to that, I would add that the town should be willing to erect our many tents we have possession of. If there is inclement weather, or if the committee wants to use that, I would recommend that we offer use of those for this event, since it's a fundraiser for our 250th.
I would I think that's a great idea, except I would make sure that the building inspector gives us the exact, what we have to do to erect them for public use, because,
Right, we've done that when we purchased them. We made sure we bought tents that don't require inspections unless we put the sides on. So
okay,
if there's any of the events, I believe we have 3 sets of side curtains. So if we want to enclose those, and we've already discussed what we need, we're going to need 2 egresses, we're going to need lighted, so battery operated lighted,
but
5
we
egress
just have to
signs.
make sure if
Right,
they're going to use them.
if we're going to enclose them, we have to go through the
Yeah.
inspector.
And if they're going to use them and they're going to erect them,
We would need to assist them, I think. Well, we can get a group together to do it
Yeah.
if they can, but
well, okay,
we'd want to do it with the DPW if we're going to do it,
Yeah.
and do it that way, but I'd just like to offer those officially. Okay, so we have motion and a second to approve this and offer use of our town tents. All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye. Carries unanimous. We're ready for the charter?
Matrix.
I mean, charter matrix, I apologize.
Not a problem.
That's a.
I have been
Oh.
insulted before by.
We're ready for the
But-
broadband. We're ready for the broadband, which charter is not for us. Please come on up. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
I've just been talking with people about what we may or may not have in town, which is, of course, we hear charter and we hear a strange company name that was on the boxes in town. So the boxes, as I found out, were run to Fire Station 1, Fire Station 2, should have been to this building, and to the library, but they never ran wire to the boxes, so I don't know if the wires are run to the pole. It was under, I think, a federal grant, and it was, they've removed it from the fire stations because the equipment was outdated and useless. But whether or not there was actually fiber run by a third party to the poles, I think the best way to find out would be check with National Grid, because they'll have record of who attached what to their poles, and they'll know if fiber does exist. Of course, Charter would say no because it's not theirs, but there may well have been federally run wire through town, and if there was, that would cover several miles.
I know they're definitely at the schools.
There, it is at the schools.
The schools normally are done via like, the E-rate,
Yep,
so they all have fiber and, you know, the federal government pays for that.
But if it does even run between the schools, that would be going from South Street to the Common and up here to
Yeah.
Ruggles. So it makes a good run of about 1.5 miles, 1.75
A
miles.
few years ago, the Mass Broadband Institute did a middle mile network, we call it the Mass 123 network. And they call it the Mass 123 network because it actually connected 123 towns in central and western Mass.
This is the far end of that, I believe.
Yeah, so you guys might have gotten some fiber from that.
I'm sure we did.
So that, yeah, they call them community anchor institutions.
Mhm.
Institutions. But anyways, so like the town administrator's office, the town offices here, the fire,
Schools.
police stations, and schools are normally, like I said, they were connected via. They also did the libraries in most towns,
Uh-huh.
so that might be some of the missing fiber.
Yeah.
Right, and if we go further back than that, there was some sort of federal grant that was running the equipment through all these buildings, and the talk back then was they were going to energize these buildings, get free internet to the towns. It never happened. And the fiber never made it into the building, so I don't know if it was run to the towns and exists unowned, just out there, or if it doesn't. So we need to still find that out and discover that.
Yep.
Because if it indeed exists, it's miles of fiber.
Well, there's two different types of fiber too. There's single mode fiber and there's multi-mode fiber. And one of them is outdated, so it depends upon which one it is.
Likely could have been the latter of the two.
Mhm.
But, and we do have fiber, I believe, between this building, the police station, and Rutland Dispatch, probably a dedicated line Does our internet come up for that for this building? Is that separate through charter?
I think it's separate.
Do we have a charter bill?
The chart
It'd be a
is right
Spectrum
here.
bill, right?
A Spectrum, yeah, charter for Spectrum.
Yeah, I'm not sure which account is the Henry Woods
Okay,
building.
we don't need to get into that then today,
Yeah.
we'll look for it another time.
So there's two basic things that I'm here to talk about tonight. One is I have a physical proposal for Spring Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is we need to talk about a feasibility study for the potential of doing the entire town with fiber. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to put together anything. There's actually the folks back in New Jersey. With all the ARPA money and the CARES Act money that's been going around, we have literally never been busier.
Yeah.
We're doing like a $15 million project in Atlantic City, a number of other communities. Tomorrow morning, we're meeting with the mayor of Worcester's office. Anyways, so the one thing I do have tangible for you tonight is actually Spring Hill.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just exactly as we discussed last week.
And that's
or
coming off the
last time.
Petersham.
Yeah, and actually with me tonight is Chip Bull, who is the chair of the Petersham Broadband Committee.
Uh-huh.
He is basically here in case you have any questions about how that network is running, how the experience of the town has been with Matrix and working with us. Just basically here to, as a neighbor to answer any questions for them. But anyways, so as you can see, it's pretty straightforward as far as the proposal for Spring Hill. It really comes down to we'd be running 3 miles of fiber, extending 3 miles of fiber all the way down Spring Hill, starting on Dana Road in Petersham, down to Dana Road in Barre, taking a right-hand turn up Old Barre, Old Dana Road, and then taking a right-hand turn down to Spring Hill. Now, we'd only be passing 23 homes, but 14 of those homes are unserved. So that would reduce the number of unserved homes in Barre.
Even the ones that are served they would have the opportunity,
They would have the option.
because some people may have a dish. You may as well be unserved if you have that.
Yeah. And in Petersham, to get to the northwest corner of the town, we actually had to go in through Athol. And they have Comcast. And they asked the same question, hey, can we get service? And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, they would have that option. Nobody's under any obligation to take service. But
And so once you would say you did this in the town of Barre, did the initial upfront costs, your relationship would be with the individuals and not with the town, correct?
Yeah.
After that, once we did, there's our money, it's all connected. Mr. Torog would be paying you, and if things didn't go well, calling Matrix.
Yeah, there's actually a couple different things that you'd be paying for.
Okay. You mean the town?
The town would
Okay.
be paying for. The first would be what's called the make-ready work.
Yep.
So the poles are owned by Verizon and National Grid. And about 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years now, the responsibility for the poles flipped from Verizon over to National Grid.
Mhm.
And this was new to National Grid, so the costs kind of gone up a little bit. But the make-ready work, the right to attach, would give us the right of way to put the fiber on the poles, is up to the utility pole owners. And they would say, okay, this is what it's going to cost in order to make room for the new facility that's going to go on these poles. Because there's really not a whole lot on the route that we're looking at,
Right.
especially on Spring Hill, the make-ready cost shouldn't be that expensive.
So, but that's a National Grid bill to the town?
That would be, they would determine the cost on that. We've given you an estimate of $70,000 for the 80 poles. That's probably a very conservative number.
Very conservative, high?
Yeah, conservative high, because anytime you're dealing with a municipality, it's always better to have the money and not need it than need the money and not have it.
So that would,
Any cost savings there would actually, remain with the town. So
Uh-huh.
the town would only be paying for the actual costs from the utility companies.
What actually are they doing for $70,000?
Well, first, they would take a look at the poles, and
they'd stand and look at them, Greg.
Yeah, literally, that's what they
Literally,
would do.
yes.
They would take a look at the poles, and some poles that are at intersections are supposed to be at a higher height because,
Yeah.
the clearance issues. So they might say that those poles need to be replaced because in order to put something else on, then we have to get it back up to code.
Okay,
Also, they will look, just putting the hardware just to attach anything is adding a little bit more restraint to the poles. So they would just basically check to make sure that the poles can take the weight. Fiber is very, very, light compared to everything else that goes on a pole. So normally that's not a problem. However, on Dana and part of old Dana, if there's other facilities like the Spectrum cable that might need to be moved up or down, that would also be some of the work that they would be charging for.
now, Matrix, once you got permitting from the National Grid, Matrix would be doing all of that.
Right, once we get, the way that the process works is we would do a pole survey. So we get the GPS locations for every single pole. We'd get the markings on the pole, because the poles in New England, some of them say NET for New England Telephone, some of them say Verizon, some of them say AT&T.
Okay,
So we need to make sure we have the pole identifiers for all of them, because that's what their records are going by. We also take a physical picture of every single pole. So if there's ever a dispute, they'll say, no, here's a picture of the pole. That pole is out of compliance. And in order to get it back into compliance, that's on you, National Grid, or on you, Verizon, not on the town. So that's where the expertise of the company comes into play.
how cooperative is National Grid when you say, this is not appropriate to standard and Matrix wants to get this? Do they drag their feet, or do they make an honest and good, caring effort to, put
Well,
the pole in?
It depends on how you deal with. The folks in the central, the central Mass has its own district. Right?
Okay,
So there's a group of people who handle like Fitchburg on west, right?
Okay.
So we fall into that area. Those folks have been pretty good,
okay,
right? But you also have to deal, because the poles are co-owned, you have to get the right to attach from both Verizon and from National Grid.
okay.
And it depends upon how busy they are and all these other different things that are going on. Because there's a lot of fiber builds that are going on right now. And some of the unserved towns are still waiting on their licenses to attach. In Petersham, it was like over a year for us to get the licenses.
It was a very long process.
Yeah. We built the town of Leverett, and when we built that town, it took us 6 months from beginning to end to get all the licenses.
Huh.
In Petersham, it took over a year, because it switched from Verizon to National Grid.
Mhm.
I think they've got their legs under them now. It's a much smoother process.
Mhm.
But it's been our experience that the people that we've worked with at National Grid are good. They know what they're doing. They're not as overwhelmed as they were like a year ago. Because a year ago, the state was trying to run everything, and I think that added a lot of time to the process. Here, we would just be dealing with them directly.
Right,
So it would only be 80 poles, or roughly 80 poles. So that's one attachment application. The way that the utility companies do, it's in groups of 200 poles. So we would be well under 200. So it'd be one application for National Grid, one application for Verizon, and then we just need to get the licenses to attach for that one application.
Mhm.
So it should go fairly quickly.
So it's about 80 poles, right?
Yeah, and we would have the fiber run in a week.
in a week?
Yeah.
So they want $10,000 or $9,000 per pole to look at and assess it.
Well, it works out to about $875 per
That's why I
pole.
said about 9.
Yeah. Oh, you said 9,000.
I
You
said
said
1,000, then I said, well,
Yeah,
900.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
10,000.
You said
Oh,
9,000.
9,000,
Yeah.
okay.
I was going to say, I don't think so.
So-
Right, I'm saying 1,000 a pole would be.
Well,
would be-
if,
would
it
be
looks like
50,000
if
and
this
80,000.
were to service 23
$900.
homes, it's about $5,000 for a package. I mean, it's about $5,000 per home if your 70,000 is right, and if you stand by your 52,000.
Yeah, we would stand by the 50,
Okay.
because that would be something that we would have control over.
Yeah,
If there are any cost overruns, we'd feel it would be because of an issue on our end,
okay.
and we wouldn't want to penalize the town for that.
Now,
This
is there, maybe you don't know this answer, but in working you work with, local, governmental agencies, is there any 30B issues with this? In other words, do we have any obligation to seek other bids on this, or?
No.
Okay,
And the reason for that, I'll explain, is one is because we'd be extending an existing network, right? And we own the network,
okay,
right? So it's not like you could go out to bid to extend that network, because we would never give anybody else the right to
Right.
do anything to that.
Okay,
The second thing is the utility poles are actually owned by, Verizon and National Grid. That also would not go up to bid.
okay,
So there's nothing here that would be subject to 30B.
okay. I'm happy to hear that. You're probably happier than I
Now,
am.
there could be one thing.
Okay,
On Spring Hill, as you go further and further down the road, the poles stop coming from Barre. And
They
there's
come
a
from
gap
Hardwick?
of about 400 feet, and the poles are coming in from Hardwick.
right.
So in order to connect those two parts, you might have to put in two poles. That might have to go up to bid, or because.
Well,
of
this
the
probably
under-
wouldn't be more than 10,000, so we
It
probably.
would actually probably be like $4,000 or less.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to worry
And I'm
about that.
thinking that there's enough cushion in that make-ready cost that it would be added into there. So it wouldn't be anything above and beyond what's been quoted to you.
Yeah. Is it typical, for example, in such a, where there's like any charge to the potential 23 homes? I know in Petersham, people had to pay $1,500 as sort of a right, saying, I'm interested. This is, from conversations, I don't know how accurate that is.
When we were dealing with Matrix, one of the things that they presented to us was a minimum number of customers that needed to
Oh.
pre-subscribe.
Right,
And that
Makes
amount
sense.
was $500, it was payable in two amounts. They actually reduced it from $500 to $400
okay,
for many individuals if they weren't taking phone service as well. The $1,500 that you refer to is usually the cost, in our instance, of additional customers coming online in the future. In the case of Leverett charges $2,400 if somebody new to the system wants to get connected. In Petersham, the number is far less than that, and that's only because separate installation crews have to come back into town
right,
in order to get things running.
right,
It was very important for us to get as many people pre-subscribed as possible to meet the requirements under Matrix's business plan,
right,
to make it worthwhile for them.
got
We
it,
far exceeded that,
yeah,
and currently we have something like 80% of all the people in Petersham are subscribing to Matrix. Our situation is considerably different than yours, given the fact that you do have cable available
yeah, to some people,
to some people. Unfortunately, once you, as you know better than I, once you make an agreement with a cable company, much of your negotiations cease and they go where they want to go. So I have some personal friends in town who live one house beyond the last cable customer, and they inquired what it would be to them as an individual household to try to get connected, and it was upwards of $25,000.
yeah, let's see, I know I support you on this, Greg. Greg is like into this, we're gonna get this is gonna happen.
Oh, then I'm gonna raise my price.
Well, no, I don't mean via Matrix, I mean some way, if he has to string the lions himself.
There's two questions that I don't think I addressed yet. And one is, would it be $1,500, we would extend the $400 installation fee?
Uh-huh,
And the $400 doesn't come close to covering the
I-
cost
yeah,
of
yeah, I
of
agree.
the actual installation. And we would break it into two parts. So first would be $200 deposit, and then the second, the $200 could be payable in one lump, or we could break it up over 12 months.
jeez,
So we're willing to work with the subscribers, because we
Yeah.
realize some people $200 is a lot. The length of the drop is up to 300 feet, and I think if you talk to the folks at Spectrum, they can only do 150.
okay,
So if it's beyond that, because we might have some long driveways, it only works out to about $1 per foot above and beyond that.
Mhm.
But most people who have those long driveways also have very nice houses. So, getting high-speed internet is something that
They
they're very
really-
happy to
yeah,
do. Now, we would extend that price for, while the construction is going on. If a year from now, somebody said we'd like to sign up, it would be $1,500, because it's very expensive
Right.
to mobilize a crew.
but I mean,
just single
for
house.
people to have even access via $1,500, I
Yeah.
think is a gift.
What we've
people
seen
are
in
struggling
Petersham
to
too
get-
is like, there's a lot of people who did not take advantage, and they ended up selling the house, and the new homeowner found out like, oh, I have to pay $1,500, I didn't expect that, but to get high-speed internet, like, yeah, absolutely gonna pay them. You're gonna pay for that.
Yeah.
Just that the real estate agent, should have told them.
Yeah,
However, there's another aspect here. There's two roads that it seems to be a lot of buildable plots, down Spring Hill. So I think it's Raccoon Hill and Spooner.
Hmm.
So that if somebody built a house there, that might be a $1,500 situation. Or if it's like a development going in there, we could just basically, do the same thing that we're offering here for Spring Hill, and just, run the fiber, and it's $400 per subscriber.
Mhm.
We would market to everybody, we would send out mailings to everybody, make sure that they're aware, give them plenty of time to sign up. Because that make-ready process does take, 5 to 6 months, there would be plenty of time for people to,
Yeah.
to make a decision.
So if the select board, after whatever negotiations or whatever we're going to do, decides to do this, would you feel 18 months to 2 years would maybe make Mr. Torhog have high-speed internet? Or,
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I would
okay,
expect 10 months.
10 months?
I'm on the other side of that, no poles.
Well, the thing to keep
It's
in mind is.
only 2 poles.
The only thing that we don't control is how quickly the make-ready process goes.
Yeah,
And once the make-ready process goes, our crews normally would build about a mile of fiber per day, which
And
means,
sometimes much more than that.
yeah. And then we'd have separate crews come behind
Yeah,
to actually connect the houses.
yeah.
So there's the fiber going down the street and the fiber going to your house.
yeah.
So, 2 separate crews, and then we have to make an arrangement with the person to get inside the house, because the final connection is actually
Mhm.
inside. And
Right.
then, once that's done, you've got high-speed internet.
Let me ask what you think of a $400 connection fee.
No problem.
A gift.
Not a problem getting internet finally, right?
I know, I mean, what I got now, I've got to use, and that is
Yeah.
Worthless.
not
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
And
That's part of the reality, is making sure that people are.
I just feel really
okay.
badly about the other parts of town that aren't serviced, that this
Yeah.
isn't going to help. I wish there was some way we could,
And that's why I was hoping we had fiber running between the buildings.
yeah.
that's why I was hoping Loring was part of Loring Hill.
Well, trust me, I'm sure the Loring people would be happy if it were too, but,
Well, the other thing we should talk about is the service itself. When we did Petersham, we came to an agreement about 5 years ago, and the speed was 50 megabits up and 50 megabits down. We've since increased that to 100 megabits up and 100 megabits down at the same price point. So we basically just went through this upgrade with Petersham, and now everybody's going to be getting the faster speeds. So the people on Spring Hill and the people on Dana and Old Dana that would be passing, we would be offering 100 megabits up, 100 megabits down. We'd also, for $95, and then also a 200 megabit tier for $135.
mhm,
If they even wanted a gigabit speed, it would be $195.
mhm,
But we always recommend people try out the lower speeds first,
mhm. And see if it works for
if
them.
it works. The last thing I wanted to mention too, as far as the tiers, we also offer a disadvantaged student tier. So
Oh.
if there's anybody that's on the street who has a child in school who qualifies for federal school lunch,
Yeah.
the cost per month is $45.
Wow.
And it's a 25 megabit tier. That tier will always meet the FCC's definition of high-speed broadband.
Wow.
Is the connection fee still the same for those
The
families?
connection fee is unfortunately still the same, as we've
Can it be
tried.
broken up over a longer period for them, just
Yeah,
because the people that are in that situation, that's gonna
Well,
be a
the,
big difference.
the school does have some funding through their from their ESSER funds that they can utilize to help students and families, so,
Yeah, and some
You
of the
know-
E-rate money now can be used
Yeah.
for some of that too.
yeah. So,
But we would absolutely work with it.
Yeah.
And I think Chip could, with the pandemic, there was a lot of people who were out of work,
I know.
and we didn't turn off anybody. We work with them, try to figure out a payment plan, whatever needs to be done, and, kind of, go from there. We're a privately owned company, when we're doing this kind of as a way to give back, because they're investing in community broadband for places that don't have broadband.
Mhm.
But in any case.
The next question would be if we did want to expand the cable, the fiber through town, so we could start to bring it towards those other neighborhoods, how would we be able to work that out for a similar, we'd probably have to pay the fees again to Verizon, get the pole ready.
Oh, yeah.
Well, see, that
And-
goes back to
and
the
if-
original, to your original question as far as like
Everyone-
30.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you are able to hire your own engineering firm, so we'll put together a quote for a feasibility and business plan,
Okay.
and give that to the town. And once you have that in place, if it does look like something that makes sense for you guys to move forward with, then that's where you might want to put together an RFP
Yeah.
to see what the responses would be.
Uh-huh.
Because once you're at that stage, The problem with like the incumbent cable companies is unless you kick the hornet's nest, a
Oh,
lot
I-
of times like they're just not interested.
Well, they're not interested,
No,
yeah.
they're
I
definitely
think-
not
yeah.
interested. We've
Well,
already-
But you'd be surprised,
Found that
once they find out that you guys are serious about doing something and that their business is now in jeopardy, then, you know, then they start to come to the table a little bit more.
Well, the COVID relief funding that's coming to the town and coming to the schools, this is one of the the kind of funding that is included, where you can, okay, it's eligible. And so if we're ever gonna do anything, at least we've got a little seed money to get off the dime, so,
Yeah, either the ARPA money or the CARES Act,
Yeah,
you should have enough. I mean, this is kind of a drop in the bucket, but it also, like I said, cuts down on the number of people who actually don't have an option.
mhm.
And I think the people today on Spring Hill who don't have service, and I'm not sure what you pay for a service today, if
From
it's
Hughes.
satellite, or if you get like Dish TV or Direct TV, but for the cost for the internet from us, your monthly bills would be going down for most people. Because Dish or Direct TV by itself is about $140 per month. And you'd be able to get all of that stuff online and actually
Right.
have better speeds.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, if we wanted to bring this to another part of town later, we could go out for an RFP and then even go to RFQ, run and own the wires ourselves. But we'd have to make sure with you, we have the right type of cable run, so you could energize those and we could,
Yeah, it's,
and then you could offer service through our, we could lease you our lines for $1 a year or something stupid.
everything we do is standards based. So when we put together a feasibility study, it would be based upon, the latest technology and making sure that it's future proof, not just in the technology, but also in the number of strands of fiber.
Mhm.
So what we do is we work with the assessor's office and say, okay, how many buildings are there?
Yeah,
Make sure that we have enough fiber for all of the buildings. Then we say, okay, what are the requirements for building in town? What's the frontage? What's the number of if there's a farm, how many plots of land could that be broken up into? And make sure that we have enough fiber to support that in the worst case scenario. Then we take that number and then we
Add to it.
We go up to the next fiber size.
yeah,
So if it's 136, we go to 144.
Yeah.
So
So basically, what we need to do is we can make a not short-sighted, but a short-term decision for Spring Hill. But we should be simultaneously working on an engineering feasibility study, so that then we could at least say to the other people in town who don't have service at this point, or the service that they have is not inadequate, here's how we can do the rest of the town, here's what we can take out of eligible funds from the feds, and here's what it might cost the town in a tax rate, and get off the dime, okay.
And what I would think is if we do that, to get this fiber to those remote locations, we're gonna go by most of the homes in town,
I would think so.
which would give a large group of people the eligibility to switch over.
Competition.
So what I would ask you is, if that time comes when we do that, will you make a similar $400 installation offer if we're opening this up to another 1,000 residents? Will you make the same time frame where they could sign in at $400 instead of $1,500? If we're gonna get a group to come sign up again, you could put a crew out here and do it.
And one of
Is
the
that
things that we
something we
would
could
do
rely
as part
on?
of the feasibility study is take a look at the town as a whole, and then also, as a subset, take a look at the unserved locations in town. And what would it take just to get a fiber network
Yep.
built out, all of them, and also pass everybody?
Yeah,
Because you could do that, and then make that like phase one,
right.
and then phase two would be everybody else that's already served.
If they
Give them
like,
the-
then you have competition.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think that would be, attractive to
Yeah.
the residents, because when you look at with the costs to build, it can be scary for some, but if you say, if we're gonna be getting service to people that Spectrum has not been willing to serve, then it's a community thing, everybody wants to make sure that,
Right.
everybody's served.
So if we do look at in the future running fiber, obviously we're not just tacking fiber to the pole with a nail and saying we're up there. There must be certain boxes, certain stations at points for distance. You need substations, power supplies, power tie-in.
That's what
There must
this
be things
engineering
like-
study will do. for
Things
us.
like that we'd have to build into it.
Yeah.
That'll be part of the.
Yeah. engineering
The
feasibility study.
$104,000 cost we're looking at for you guys to do the actual build.
Right, right. And
That's-
then, again, there's really two big costs. You have the cost for the make-ready work, which would be National Grid and Verizon.
Yeah.
If you do it town-wide, it gets really expensive.
Right,
And then there's the cost to actually build. And the build is the easy part. You know, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's
It's a lot of equipment involved.
It's a lot of equipment involved, but you've got professionals who do this all the time. We've literally built thousands of miles of fiber network. That, you know, we just build it, we build it to code, we build it so that it's built to last.
Can you give me a guesstimate if we were to immediately engage or begin our work on an engineering feasibility study, RFP or RFQ, whatever we decide? I don't know, 30B may require us to do one and not the other, I'm not sure. What's the time frame for us to wrap through that? I mean, on a speed thing, probably 8 to 10 weeks?
Yeah, probably.
Okay,
And again, I don't think that would be subject to 30B because you're allowed to hire your own lawyers
Right,
and accountants
right.
and engineers. We recently did one for the town of Sterling.
okay,
We're helping them build their fiber network. We also did one for the town of Shrewsbury. And again, neither one of those had to go out to bid.
well, I would say Sterling has a lot of, like, places like we do, way out in the middle of, in
There's spots
hills
and
and
some
stuff,
places.
yeah.
And they're also similar in that.
Who in Sterling could I talk to?
Sean, I'll get you the contact.
Okay.
Contact information. Bill Underhill will be one contact. And I'm thinking about the general manager, Sean, and I'm drawing a blank on his last name.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay,
But the big difference between Sterling and here is Sterling actually has a municipal lighting plant where
Right.
they're the electric company.
right.
So they, you know.
They could give you permits on the
They own the
poles.
poles.
No, they don't own the poles, like
Ah,
Really?
Shrewsbury owns the poles. You know, so they're co-owners with Verizon.
Oh, okay.
So they still have to work with utility companies. In Shrewsbury, they're just like, no, okay, we're gonna put it here.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is nice.
Okay, so we can probably get some info from Sterling and take a look at what they sent out, so we could use that as a
I can
template.
get that contact over, Jessica.
Okay, that'd be great. All right.
Any more questions, Dylan?
Next up.
Well, we're gonna have to decide, do we want to drag our feet more? Do we want to move forward and get?
Well, I don't want to drag my feet, but,
I mean,
you know,
we've-
I'm willing to drag if you guys are
We've
dragging.
secured $100,000 from the town meeting.
We already have.
A year plus ago.
Yep.
So we're only a couple $1,000s short, which we can certainly come up with if we need to out of our
For ARPA funds.
funds or something. ARPA
The only
funds.
thing that I want to make certain is that we have a congruent process where we're moving ahead with the feasibility study and engineering study, because if I live on Loring Road and all of a sudden Spring Hill's getting the gift and I'm just sitting there, I'd be screaming.
I've always been very clear.
I know you
when we
have.
ask for the money, that look, we can't get everyone at once. Our first
Right,
quote
so if
from-
we can
Our
have,
first quote from most of it was $760,000.
yeah, so
from Charter to
I'd just
get
like to
water
have
most
a
of these.
process where
Um,
the entire town can appreciate our efforts to serve all of them.
Right. Which is where I think if you did like a
Feasibility study.
feasibility study within the feasibility saying, you know, here's the
Yeah.
whole town, but here's, if you just wanted to start off.
Target these roads.
Yeah,
we
These
need.
are folks, right.
So we
Okay.
need to target,
So we need the feasibility engineering study you know, and in
Two separate tracks.
two separate tracks.
Yeah.
right now, the feasibility study is gonna cost us money. If we go for RFP for that,
You still do it with our ARPA money.
we could do it with ARPA money, okay. So why don't we, next meeting, discuss that in better detail so we can direct
Well,
Jessica to start that study?
And because if we can get Sterling's, you know, and find out what it cost them, we'll have an idea. about-
Right, we can do that and have another discussion at our next meeting. But otherwise, I liked the plan last time, I like the plan this time, and I would accept a motion on it if you two would like to do so.
A motion to, what do you, for the whole thing that we're talking about?
Yep, this
Okay.
project anyways, to get
Okay.
moving.
I will make a motion that includes an immediate effort on the town's part to pursue an engineering feasibility study.
Oh, wait, are we doing Spring Hill first?
No, I want to do, I only want to do this first because Spring Hill is coming out the winter tonight, but I just want to start with them understanding that we're talking
Okay.
about the whole town,
I
and
apologize.
we were able to do this first piece, and, you know, because trust me, It's a rough ride as a selectman,
So
if
let's
all
start
I
that
took
motion.
care of was
Let's
bring
start that
everyone.
motion again.
Okay, I would move that the town begin the process of pursuing an engineering feasibility study immediately, and simultaneous with that work, that we would approve the matrix design group proposal that has been presented to us dated September 8th, 2021, that would provide extending service to a cable network, high-speed network, to the Spring Hill, Old Dana area in the town of Barre. Did you get that?
It's okay.
Should get it out of the minutes.
Yeah, I'll get it on the camera.
We have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
I have a motion second to start a feasibility study for the rest of the town and approve and engage Matrix Design Group as this proposal reads.
Great.
Do we have any further discussion on that?
Just to make certain that people understand that we do have the funding that was voted actually almost 2 years ago now,
Yes.
and for at least the major part of the matrix proposal, and that we have ARPA funds that we could use to subsidize the remainder of it, and also to provide the funding necessary for the engineering feasibility study necessary to ensure that the whole town is involved
And
in this
quite possibly
process.
spend some ARPA funds towards extending that cable.
Exactly.
That would be a priority to me.
Well, that-
And that would be a long-term benefit for the town, like we talked about,
Absolutely.
something, spending that money in a way that we have,
Yeah.
just got something for it, we have
Yeah.
something lasting for
Yeah.
the town.
And on my end, I'll get Jessica the contact for both Sterling and for Shrewsbury, so you can talk to them. 'Cause
Thank you.
We do studies for both. And then if you want to put me on the agenda for the next meeting, I'll come.
Okay.
And I might even have a proposal for a feasibility study at that point.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those.
We did have a question back there, did we? get a
No,
question?
she answered it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Aye.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Looks like
That
unanimous.
is unanimous. Thank you very much.
And Ted, I hope you
We
will
look
just
forward.
provide us support at the Finance Committee.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thanks
This is
very,
your copy.
thanks very much for coming down from Petersham.
You're quite welcome, and if you'd like to follow up on how everything went in Petersham, our website is connectingpetersham.com.
Okay,
It'll show you our contract with Matrix and everything that was part of what was a 12-year process, primarily because working with the state of Massachusetts was excruciating.
don't tell me that now.
Well,
It's better?
We've done it for 12 years.
It will be
but-
different for you. It was excruciating for us because we were the recipient of an $860,000 grant, $880,000 grant,
Right.
as part of the overall project that the state was working on. But it was tough going. The minute it became in our court and Matrix's court, everything moved amazingly smooth.
Okay, great.
So we're less than 12 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good evening. Comprehensive master plan is our next topic for this evening.
Yes, I was hoping that somebody from the planning board would be here. But I don't know, since Alan's here, do you want to just talk about
Yeah,
precincts?
Sure.
Is that what we're talking about next?
I think we're talking
2020,
about
Census
census.
precinct approval.
I know that she's
Ellen, come on.
on vacation right now, so.
Why don't we
What
make
better
sure we
place
take
to
care of
spend
everybody in the
vacation?
room first before we move into anything else?
A staycation, is that what they call it?
So, census is done.
Well, that's
So
good.
these precincts look the same as
They are
previous precincts?
identical.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also,
So basically, when the federal census figures came out, we ended up at the new,
Total.
it was 5,530 is the new federal census population for the town of Barre.
5,000.
5,530.
Ooh, we're getting big.
No, this is,
So
we
it's a
have been
decrease, right?
forever hovering around here.
Well, from 10 years ago, we were 5,113, I believe, was the
Yeah.
figure from
We've
the
been staying
20s.
pretty tight at
10.
5,000.
So they do it every 10 years. I mean, our town population from the annual census that I have is only around 5,100.
Because people don't answer.
And sometimes we even drop, once I have to do my drop notices, we sometimes even drop below the 5,000 mark. But we don't have the same resources that the federal government has to get those people to
Right.
answer.
And they come knocking on everyone's door.
Yeah, and they use my
Right.
census as a base,
Right.
so they can only
They
go
just
up
fill,
from
they
there.
just
Yeah.
fill in the gaps, right?
How's the
So-
birth rate going?
The birth rate?
Birth rate?
I honestly, I think we're right around 40, 42 maybe.
Okay.
We're right around there.
I'm just wondering if we'll go to
Yeah.
3, 4 kindergartners, you know?
Yeah, we're right around there.
Okay.
So the re-precincting, everything is done, so we need to approve everything. The Board of Selectmen are the voting authority. Nothing has changed. We have the same precinct boundaries. I gave you that
Yep.
copy of the small map there.
Yep,
I brought the big map, in case you guys want to see the big map.
I'm good.
Let's not get into that if we don't
Okay,
have to.
perfect. Fine by me. So,
Can I ask you a dumb question?
there is no dumb questions.
Do you have a second one after that?
Maybe. Why do we have 2 precincts here when other similarly sized towns only have 1?
Yep. Well, historically, Barre has always been 2 precincts.
mhm,
So a lot of it is historically
Mhm.
because of our land mass and way back when, because of distance of travel and where the populations were settled, we always had 2 precincts. The last, like, we could have reverted back to 1 precinct, but because we've been hanging out at 5,000 for quite a while, once we get to a population of 6,200, we're forced to break off to go to 2 precincts. So my recommendation has always been to keep it at the 2 precincts. And because it works for our town, we have the facilities, people don't have to wait in line to vote.
Right.
We have, we have a smooth process. I mean, really, Barre has a great setup for our elections with the 2
mhm.
polling locations. So that's really bottom line. I mean, we could, like I said, we could have gone to 1 precinct, but that's just not something that I think would have worked as well for our community. And
Gotcha.
given the fact that, once we get to 6,200, then you gotta break everything up again.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then
Mm.
that becomes, a big project. Again, when we're doing re-precincting and redistricting, it's all based upon our census, the federal census. And our towns are divided into what's called census blocks. And when you re-precinct, every precinct has to be within plus or minus 5% of population, regardless of how big or small the precincts are. So it's a lot of, moving things around.
Mhm.
And to throw out another barrier, there's the division lines are very specific. So our division lines are always done by the roads
Mhm.
for our foundation, but the only way that we can divide is by a road, a river, a stream, some type of a physical hard
Boundary.
set boundary.
So could you do odds and evens one side or over the
We
other?
do have that actually, on just out, we have that out Hubbardston Road, because our boundaries on the map actually go from Old Harbor Road out to, out Walnut Road, and then they go down South Street, out Stetson Road, it
Mhm.
comes back up Valley Road, out Valley Road, and then it goes out Hubbardston Road.
Mhm.
Those are the physical boundary lines, but that's how we had to juggle it in order to get our blocks to all add up, because you might have 5 people in this block, but, 150 in this block, and you just have to get the numbers to work, and it's like a puzzle.
Mhm.
So, but that's how we ended up coming out. In 2010, we did have to, like that little dip down, that's one of the changes that we had to make the last go-round. We had to, we didn't meet our plus or minus 5%, so we had to
So
change it all.
do we notify anyone that's been changed by mail or anything, that the
Yeah,
district's
so
been changed, precincts been changed?
Printed off the formal vote, so
Mhm.
what you'll be signing tonight will be the one that I'm actually gonna send into the LEDRC, which is the Local Election District Review Commission. that they're the ones that we have to notify.
Right, it looks like
And
one
then-
says we're approving the actual districts, and one is just officially declared.
There's, actually, yeah, so
We've done it.
what you're approving is the actual, the
Precinct
census,
descriptions.
the precinct descriptions and the census block numbers, the
Mhm.
census blocks sheets,
Yeah, right here.
yeah, and the map,
Mhm.
basically, so,
I missed that one.
Do you need 3 different copies, or is just one copy?
no, I just need the original one back,
Okay,
and then we can make photocopies from there, and then I can certify.
okay.
The original will go to them.
I don't know what the original, do you have
and
that?
then we'll send it to them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and these are the census blocks. The census blocks are this big, this Excel
Mhm.
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So you can see. how we
So I
arranged
guess
that.
we have to vote to accept the precinct, the 2020 re-precincting plan for the town of Barre presented by the town clerk
Yeah.
at the September 8th board meeting.
So we're looking for one vote on the 2020 precinct descriptions, correct?
No, just this one vote.
Just
According
this.
to, this is,
Just this one.
this was worded by the Secretary of State's office, so every town is voting basically the same motion here, pretty much.
Okay, so why do we have it, why is it written on this one?
We have to sign it.
Just to sign it.
Yeah. So you're just gonna be taking a vote to accept as presented by the Barre Town Clerk, the 2020 re-precincting plan for the town of Barre.
So I'll move that.
Yeah, I will second that motion.
Motion is second to accept the 2020 re-precincting and sign this form as presented. Any further discussion?
And then a second vote,
Hold on. And then your discussion, that's one still on this piece? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Go ahead.
okay. And then the second plan would just be the, accepting the precinct bound descriptions.
Okay, that's
The
the same, so we
boundary.
do need to vote on that. So
Yes.
that's what I'm trying to say. So, but
Yeah,
there's a
I'm
third
sorry, you
vote,
were
there's a
correct.
third vote you want on these blocks afterwards, or is this the only vote you just
No,
want?
they did not say we needed a third vote for the blocks, that's part of the plan.
Okay, so then we
The
need,
blocks reflect.
So I
reflect
would
that.
move that we accept as presented by the town clerk on September 8th, the town of Barre 2020 precinct descriptions.
Second.
motion second to accept the 2020 precinct descriptions as presented. Any further discussion?
With our thanks, I know how much work that goes into this.
It is, it's,
It looks easy when we're looking at this, but,
yeah, it's a long time.
yeah.
I bet it is.
Started census in 2019.
Yeah. But were you going to be here for the, what is it, the 2030?
I don't know.
Just checking.
That'll be my fourth one.
Well, then you'll really be good at it.
That'll, going four decades. I don't know.
Do we have any further discussion on that topic? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay, all set? Excellent. Anything else you need from us or when you're here? Or everything going well?
Yep.
Glad to have that done, I bet.
we
Very
do,
glad to get that off my plate.
we do have later in the agenda, the administrative assistant to the town clerk job description. Do you have anything you'd like to share with us? I mean, I've reviewed it.
Yep. Well, I finally got around to do that. We've just been,
Yeah.
I've had a lot going on in my personal life, so I've had a lot of things going on, so we haven't
This is September
fully.
8th?
Yes.
But you're okay with that?
I'm okay with the job
Okay.
description for now. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that will work, and I hope we can get applicants.
I hope you can.
I do have,
Thank you.
Jessica, I did go through and do the, think of questions, so I have that pretty much all set. I just need to do a scoring chart to go with it, but the questions are done.
Wonderful.
I got some good ones too.
Oh, good.
You will have your papers in a moment.
Yeah, in a
Oh,
second.
awesome.
When you leave, we'll have them for you.
Jessica, do you want to make copies? Do you want me to just give them to her? or-
I think you can just give them to her and I can get copies from.
Yeah, I'll sign it. Yeah, if I sign it, then it will be complete, and then I'll send it, that'll be copies, certified copies for you.
Right, okay.
All right?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck on your
Thank you.
recruitment and interviewing and all.
Thank you. I hope it goes well.
Ted, are you here for something specific tonight, or
What?
are you here for something specific? I don't want to hold you up.
But I was here for it.
Oh, okay, I didn't, if you wanted something else, I want to let you, didn't want to hold you up before you get out of here.
He just didn't want to cook supper.
Wonderful night out
All
on
right.
the sun.
Good
Have a
night.
good
Good
night,
night.
guys.
Okay, extended extended
think-
useful life of department equipment.
Well, okay, then we'll come back to
Yeah, we'll
master
we'll
plan.
just finish going
Okay,
through it.
yeah,
and go back
because
to it.
Yeah, sure. So, in front of you guys, you have a vote, to extend the useful life of the, equipment that's listed there, which includes fire equipment, ambulance, fire engine, pickup with plow, dump truck, solar panels, and fire engine. So this all of this debt was wrapped into one, loan. And we only have a certain number of years to pay down on that loan before it
Yeah.
expires, and we have to turn it into a state house note. So that's what we had to do this year. But in order for us to get that state house note, I need the select board to make a procedural vote that the useful life of this equipment, which is technically, for purposes of financing, it's technically not useful. Most of this is not useful to us anymore. So you guys have to make the vote to extend that useful life, and it is very much still useful to the town. Most of this equipment, if not all of it, we are still actively using on a day-to-day basis. So,
Except that ambulance is going out the door very quickly.
Yeah,
nope, that's the ambulance that is,
Oh, is that the new one?
nope, that's the newer one.
No, well, it says 2016.
Yep, yeah, so that's the one that we're keeping. The 2005 is the one that just,
died.
kicked the bed.
Wow, was that long ago we approved that
Mm.
ambulance? We're just getting it. Imagine that.
Yeah. And the new ambulance that we've purchased
I thought,
last year might be here by next Saturday, fingers crossed.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the new one's not on here. That's,
Not the new one.
the
But the
new one's
new-
coming. That's the newer one that's on here though, right? The 7-year?
Right, the one, it was voted in 2016, so that one's ambulance,
Right, that one's out the door soon.
yes.
That one they're having issues with, and it's
That
not
one.
gonna last long.
Yeah,
Gee,
That's what I'm saying,
but
even
the
even that one.
2005 one is the one that we just. put
Right, that's
to bed.
gone,
That
that's done.
is,
Right, that's defunct, but this
Yeah.
other one won't be far behind. from what I
right,
understand.
right.
They
Oh,
put
gosh.
a, well,
a lot of miles, I know,
lot of miles on it, yeah.
and tough miles.
So, what are we looking, is this,
What we want to do is vote to approve the life extension of these vehicles? Is that?
Yeah, the useful life.
The
So for
useful life?
financing purposes, so it'll say that the fire, or the ambulance is, the maximum useful life is 7 years. So right
is
now, we are
2023.
still, yeah, we're still within, but this state house note goes for another 10 years.
10 years.
So,
Ooh.
yeah, so, but we can pay it down in less than 10 years. But it's gonna exceed that 7 years for the ambulance, so we'll have to, but that's the purpose of this vote, is so we don't have to come back in 2023 or 2026 and keep revoting the useful life of these equipment. It's just one vote to extend the useful life until this debt is fully paid off.
Okay, so the vote you would like is to make a motion to extend the useful life of the equipment referenced on the document provided on September 8th of items,
You can actually, they have a little section.
can we extend the useful, you say you want to do a 10-year note, can we extend the useful life through fiscal year 2032 for all these?
I think that would be because they're going to look at this as a verification of creating a state house note. And so
Yeah.
if you put 2032, they're going to say, these people are crazy.
Right.
We just say we extend the useful life.
Well,
I
we need
think.
the useful life to extend into the loan period.
Right.
So if we're doing a 10-year loan, we need to determine the life of these is all that.
Well, they have right on the, I don't know where.
Okay, we don't have that.
Because it has the language right here, and you can use this right here to say, you know, I make a motion that the maximum, you
Oh.
can just read this language.
Okay,
right
so
here.
I would make a motion that the maximum useful life of the departmental equipment listed below is hereby determined pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7-1, to be as follows: fire equipment, ambulance, fire engine, pickup with plow, dump truck, solar panels, and fire engine, with the maximum useful life not to exceed those dates included in this document. I mean, we can include the document in the minutes, I guess.
Yeah. And this is what, so this is the formal document that the clerk has to
Yeah.
sign that says, the clerk, we certify that in a public meeting, we voted to extend the useful life
Yeah.
of all of this equipment
Okay.
for this
So we're just going to approve that. A motion to
Well,
approve that document.
I'm not ready. According to this, right here, the first one, fire equipment, from the meeting date of June 21st, 2016, the useful life is not to exceed 7 years, which takes us to 2023.
Yeah.
And that's what we're stating if we use this list. We're going to officially tell them that that truck is no good after 2 years, and we're asking for a 10-year loan on that?
We're asking them to extend that.
Yes, we're actually, so right now, what you see below is what the useful life of that piece of equipment is when you purchase it off the lot. Like when you purchase the ambulance and you finance it, the financing officer says, okay, we will finance this and we only see the use of it being good for 7 years. And then after that, it doesn't really make sense for them to finance something that doesn't have a technical useful life to it anymore. Even though in our situation, we end up using equipment a lot longer than what their useful life is. And so the purpose of this is to say that, we didn't pay it off in the time period that we needed to, but in order for us to extend the debt, we will be paying on items past their so-called useful life that the financing officer gives that number to when we purchase it.
When we purchased that last ambulance, the useful life is supposed to be 7 years.
Right.
Okay, and that's all this states.
Right.
It's just, we're just,
So what I'm not hearing in anything we read is anything that tells the state that we're extending those useful lives because those equipments are still and will remain in use. I would think that's a statement we need to make.
well,
This list is a true list. However, this equipment is and will remain in use in the town for several years.
Because they wouldn't have, it would be, I don't think it would be good for a bank to be financing something that we don't
use.
have use for anymore, right?
Right.
We'd be
but-
upside down.
That's what I'm saying, but according to this list, these things are all going to expire in the next year or two, most of them.
Which is why we need to exceed the maximum use.
Right, so something in our statement has to say that the life of these vehicles is extended beyond our initial.
Yeah.
Right.
But I didn't hear anything in that language that said that we're extending the life of these vehicles.
Well, I think if we extend it under the provisions of the statute, we're clean. 'Cause that statute
Right.
describes why we're extending it in order to qualify for the State House note.
Yeah.
But the statute said it's determined to be as follows, and that's what lists the short times on it. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, got it.
It says, according to the statute, we say the life is as follows, right here.
Mhm.
And that's what we need extended.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I
The
hear
way,
what
the
you're
way,
saying.
the way this literally reads is, according to the statute, that's the life of these vehicles. So we're asking them to lend us money on a vehicle that expires, three of them, and 2 in 2023, 1 in 2026,
Right.
2 in 2024,
Yeah.
and we want a loan on those vehicles that expire, a usefulness in just 2 years.
We want to continue, yes. Yeah.
So we want to say, according to the statute, we've determined these life expectancy to be, and we need to extend that.
Right.
So you're going to change those dates?
Because if we approve those dates, that doesn't do us, that's our predetermined life.
Mm-hmm.
We need to extend each of those dates a certain amount to make sure we get this loan.
I don't know, Greg. All I know is this is a perfunctory thing that we have to do, and I would suspect that.
This is what we got from the bank.
Oh,
Like, this is verbatim, or.
okay, if that's what the
whoever-
bank said to do.
I mean, so we got a package from our financial advisor, or
Okay, from Unibank?
wherever we're getting the State House note from, This came in the package, so this is all stuff, like you
Okay.
said, perfunctory, it's a,
See,
So perhaps the State House note, the intent is just to assume these into one note from the
Yes.
State House.
yes,
And the life expectancy probably doesn't matter.
yeah, well,
well,
I,
Well, for the State House notes,
Yeah.
it might not. For
Yeah.
the bank, they're not gonna lend us money on something beyond its expected
Yeah.
life, but the State
they,
House
yeah.
may well lend
may
us the
well-
money
Yeah, and the bank
based on
just,
these same
yeah,
dates.
the bank just provides us with their skill and talent to push this through.
yep.
All right, so we don't really need to extend the life, we just need to tell the state, we're still using them, so we want to borrow some money to pay for it.
Yeah.
And the state will say, okay, we're a bank, can't do that because we are past the value of
Yeah.
the vehicle.
Right.
And the thing of it is, I think before
So
you were.
the form will stay
Yeah.
as it is, we're
I-
not changing those
Right,
dates.
and I think before you were selectman and involved in town government probably a whole lot, or maybe you remember, being at a town meeting where they had a representative from the Collins Center, they got up and said, you guys should buy all this equipment, and we bought all that equipment and had these huge, and we're all going, really, really? And the notes just didn't, the serviceable life of the stuff was, that's why we're in this mess. It's
Well,
not a
yeah,
mess, but it's.
the last ambulance, I think they took a 10-year note to pay off something with a 5-year life.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
so-
And they wrote it as 7-year, but it's,
Yeah. Well, it's like,
it's
you know-
5 and it's done now at 5.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why the last ambulance, we
Yeah.
paid for it, we were trying to fund it for
Yeah.
5, but we paid for it.
Yeah.
The fire truck realistically will be sitting on that engine for 15 years.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, it
I'd
just.
love to see it going less, but I
Yeah.
don't know if we can
Yeah.
sustain that kind of spending. But we gotta at least get some more engines, we need to keep replacing them at some pace.
Yeah,
I think NFPA says 5 years.
yeah. So are we
would
just,
be,
the
I think,
motion would be
10.
just to approve the, whatever this is called, what's it called?
The useful life.
Yeah. That the
Well,
board.
this
would-
is a statement. I, the clerk of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Barre, Massachusetts, certify at the meeting held today on the 8th of September 2021, of which a meeting all members of the board were duly notified, at which a quorum was present, the following vote was unanimously passed, all of which appears on the official report of the board in my custody. Voted that the maximum useful life of the department equipment listed below
Mhm.
is hereby determined pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7-1, to be as follows,
Right,
and those are listed.
yeah.
So we're voting to just determine
Yep.
this as it is.
Yep.
And then we can have this signed by the clerk, which would be you.
Yeah, which was me.
And we should be good for what the bank wants us to apply for the note. So I
Yep.
will look for a motion to approve this affidavit as it sits.
So,
Yeah, and then second.
Motion second to approve this useful life
Do we-
document and have it signed by the clerk. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
I
And
think,
we need a separate one, because these are all two-sided. I do appreciate the effort to save paper, but I think I would prefer to see these documents go back to one-sided, because we're finding I like to put mine out of the way, and I see Dylan's doing the same thing. We were looking for this, and it's on the
Okay.
back side of this,
Yeah,
which has
no
already been
problem.
put aside, so.
that's why I couldn't
just-
find it.
Just to keep it going smoothly, we'll
Okay.
try to keep some of those pertinent documents anyways. If, for example, if there's 6 pages to something like Ellen's report, both sides are great. But I would like a new topic on the agenda to be a separate page, at least starting on its own page.
okay.
So we make sure we don't toss them around. That's the only thing I'd ask for.
Yeah.
I like saving paper, I like the double-sided printing, but at least we'll make sure that each topic is separate in its packet, and they can double-side to the end of that topic.
Okay,
That sound good?
yep.
Thank you. You guys all right with that?
Yeah.
Let's just make it easy to stick with it as we go. Wage authorizations, we can move through those. We have Officer Connor.
Sarmonti.
So Monty, thank you. I think I have glasses. I should stop putting them on. Do I still have some in here? No, I looked last time. I don't. I know that. I gotta get a pair. So we have a wage authorization for Officer Samanti,
Part-time to full-time.
part-time to full-time stuff.
Move approval.
So,
Yep, second.
motion is second to make the wage authorization. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's just his offer letter.
And then we have administrative assistant to the town clerk job description. What's going on here? We just tidying up the description for?
Well, this is a new position, so,
Yes, yeah, so, I guess this has been in the works for a couple of years before I got here, but this year, we made it a reality in the budget to, add the administrative assistant town clerk. This essentially will add a third person, very part-time, very flexible hours in the town clerk's office, because Ellen, especially with the past couple of elections, and there's just very busy times in her office where she could use the extra help. And then also, if we think about succession planning, she just wants to make sure, you know, her and Marion have been in that office together so long that it would be, you know, for planning purposes, in the event that one of them decides to retire or leave, you know, that we have another person in the office who can kind of carry on the roles and responsibilities of the, in the town clerk's office. And so this is just the job description, and it is the responsibility of the select board to approve job descriptions before they get posted.
Very good. What kind of pay wage we looking for, pay grade? Is that already fit into the schedule? What would the scale start at? How many hours are we talking about?
it's an
Yeah.
average of 13, it says in the job description, a week,
Right. And I think
13.3.
it would be an average based off of what we have in the budget, but definitely, she would make it, or she being Ellen, would tailor the hours to be more during the busy times of the year, and then less, you know, the summer is a special, well, I guess I shouldn't say. For some offices, the summer is a slower time, but for the town clerk's office, with town meeting and then everything that comes after town meeting, for the town clerk, you know, those are some busier times of the year that they have. As far as, the wage scale, it is within our wage and comp plan, the same tier 3, administrative assistant, so if they.
Do we have a part-time designation there as opposed to full-time wage?
The wage is the same whether it's full-time or part-time,
Just an hourly rate.
just an hourly rate. Yep, so it would start at $16.50 an hour if they don't have any,
And this is
formalization.
already part of the budget for her for this year?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Look for a motion.
Move approval of the administrative assistant's job description presented by the town clerk.
Second?
Motion is second to approve the job description for the new administrative assistant for the town clerk. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So you guys will be posting that soon, I assume?
Yes.
And we'll look to see the hire when it comes through, when you
Yep.
all approve it, right?
Yep.
Because we don't do that part.
You just authorize the wage.
Okay, we'll jump back to the comprehensive master plan discussion now, and then we'll do our minutes last.
Yeah, absolutely.
Second to last, of course, we'll do minutes.
So as you see in your packet, I received a grant to do a comprehensive master plan. This was one of the goals that I was given when I was hired. And so we got that last week. It's $45,000, which will definitely be very helpful for us to do this plan. I think that we could potentially look at a cost of about $70,000 to do this plan and do it very well, without having it be too much of an administrative burden on myself, because these plans, they're very thorough, they're very time consuming to do. But I think that I've already talked with CMRPC, and I've already gotten some RFPs from other towns to look at, you know, what our options are as far as who we want to hire and how we want to structure the town of Barre's master plan. We are in a really good position just because in the past we've had a lot of grants to do planning in general. So we have right now the open space and recreation plan, we have economic development plans. So all of those plans will be a part of this entire book, but we still have a long ways to go. And my recommendation, and again, I wish that somebody from the planning board was here. I saw that Matt had emailed everybody saying that he wanted to be here, but he couldn't. So really is the planning board's responsibility. But since we don't have a full-time planner, that kind of responsibility falls on my shoulders to be the administrator in the, to help guide this process along. And it's something that I also find very interesting. So, but my recommendation for the select board will be to create a master plan steering committee. And that steering committee will basically, they'll meet at least on a monthly basis, depending on if we go with, who we go with for a consultant to do the master plan. They'll create a schedule of meetings. It includes public forums, a lot of public forums, very long meetings. I'm talking probably 3 to 4 hours at a time for the steering committee to meet. So it is, it is a role that somebody in the community really has to be invested in for the about 12 to 18 months that it'll take to complete the plan. So I think, after this meeting, with your permission, I can put together all of the necessary details for a steering committee, and then we can start looking at what the makeup of that will look like, whether depends on who you want to see on that steering committee, if it's a representative from every board and committee, how many residents, do you want, typically you have a school committee member, you have a board of selectmen member, planning, conservation, it's usually about a committee of 12 to 15 people, including, Board of Health and DPW, and it really, you want to make sure that it's a very diverse committee.
Now, would you say that this steering committee is managed by the, whoever we get as the, consultants who are going to work with the town?
Right, so in my experience, it really pays off to have a strong chair of the steering committee. So the chair of the steering committee will really act as a liaison for the consultant to the rest of the steering committee and keep that conversation line open without bogging down the consultant with, 15 different emails.
Mm-hmm.
So that, in that respect, that chair and vice chair would be very crucial in this kind of relationship, since it is such a large committee.
Would that potentially be some members of the planning board?
Yeah, in my experience, the chair was just a resident.
Okay.
The vice chair was from the planning board. I would recommend only one member from each board, though. I wouldn't have like 2 members of the planning board or 2 members of the conservation commission. I would just make sure that it is just like one member from each to be a liaison for that board or committee.
So the steering committee's role is really to direct whichever group we hire to work on this,
Correct.
as to the process of what they prioritize.
Correct.
Do they need to be involved as often once, let's say we hired CMRPC to do this, once they begin putting together the master plan? I would imagine the need for the steering committee lessens
No.
once they have direction.
Nope. It is from day one to when that master plan is presented to the planning board for approval. That steering committee as a body is very much a part of the entire process.
So they should be looking at each step of this as they go, working with modifying and improving sections before they move on to the next piece.
Yeah.
So people who do this are going to have an opportunity to be very involved
Oh, yes.
in the
It's
master
so
plan for the town.
super thorough, because, you'll go, probably 2 meetings a month, I would say. And you'll go in one meeting, you'll just talk about transportation topics, and they'll have a list of a million different transportation topics, and as the steering committee, you say, this language, it would sound better for Barre if the language said this, and then the consultant says, okay, edits that. It's exhausting. It's
Now,
very long.
who appoints the steering committee? Is the board?
The board of selectmen.
Yeah, if we can create it, it would be our
Now,
subcommittee.
can I respectfully ask if people are interested that they give us a little bit of information about who they are, and, you know, what their background is, because sometimes I'm voting for these people to be on the Council for Aging or something else, and I'm saying, I don't even know who they are.
Absolutely.
And it would just be helpful if, you know, because I'm guessing some citizens will be interested, I hope. Because this is sounds like an overwhelmingly busy task. I mean, I think that'll make
Gonna take
being on the
some time.
select board like you're not even doing anything. Because this is like a lot of work.
It'll end up being about a 450 to 500 page document in my experience. So it is a very,
That then has to be presented to town meeting and approved?
just the planning board.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, the planning board has to approve it. Typically, they will, they'll invite the select board and they'll say, we just want to make sure that the select board, and of course, there'll be a select board representative on the steering committee. But it's really important that there is a buy-in here because once we have a master plan in place, it's going to be our responsibility
To fund it.
to fund it and to stick with it, We can't have this plan that we spend so much money and so much time on.
And that's why it's important to have each committee and department have somebody involved, because we expect the entire town to stick with it and focus on it and try to, put any of the future decisions with an eye on this document that's getting created. This is going to say a lot about what Barre becomes in the future. People can look at their hometowns, like I can where I grew up, and look at the changes that have happened, some good, some not good. And this is the planning that takes place now that determines where Barre is going to be, 20 years from now, 10 years from now. This committee can make it locked up as all farmland and no more development and no more houses, and we shrink away out of existence. Or it could become a little city with malls and stores and whatnot. I don't see either of those being the case, someplace hopefully in the middle. But what exactly it becomes is what this document is supposed to steer us towards.
Right.
And I hope people seriously consider it, and if they do throw their hat in the ring, be mindful that it's going to be
A lot of work.
a lot of work, good, rewarding work. And I would assume those committee members' names will be forever tied to that document. So it will be published, and you will be published with it.
Yeah.
Your efforts will be acknowledged, and everybody will understand that you've done something for us. And hopefully we get a lot of volunteers, and I hope people from committees volunteer. If we get multiples from committee, we'll have to meet with those committees and talk to those people and decide which one. Because I agree, we limit it to one committee member for a committee. And sometimes that'll be a quorum. If we couldn't have two, we'd have a quorum there.
And I think it's also important to make people aware that the steering committee isn't the only people that make any decisions related to the master plan, because with every topic, again, I'll use transportation. So we have a transportation topic, but then there will be, so the public forum really shapes that topic, and that is open to anybody in the community to put their voice into. And then once it's shaped, again, this is from my experience, so once it's shaped by the public forum, that's when the steering committee goes through with kind of a fine-tooth comb and be like, okay, well, I think this is to better clarify the language here, this is what we clarify in different aspects. So it's definitely, the steering committee has a very big role, but then the community at large also is very important in the formation of the plan as well.
Okay, Jessica, congratulations on the grant.
Thank you.
Good work.
So
then next, you'll put together the description of the different sizes of the board that we'd consider, and the job description, if you will, of those who want.
potential charge for
I
the
was
committee.
saying-
Yeah, charge for the committee and the application for people to throw their hat in the ring.
Yeah.
Right.
We can do that.
We'll hopefully look at those for next meeting, and if need be, make adjustments to the charges we see fit, and hopefully approve it next meeting. If not, we'll do it in the first meeting in October, and hopefully get that charge approved and started, and I'm hoping, a month, might take two to get people together, but within the, before the end of the year, I'd like to have the committee established and get them moving on it.
Right.
And what's the use by time for this grant?
It's 2 years from when I I submit it for signature, so there is something in one of the folders for Greg to sign, and then I can submit that tomorrow, and that's kind of where our 2-year timeline is.
Well, do you want him to take a couple days to sign it, or do you want to sign it like quickly?
It's up to you, Greg.
Well,
It
it's-
doesn't matter.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's up
hopefully we're looking at a year and change, not
Yeah.
2 years, so I don't think it's
Yeah.
gonna be pressing
Oh.
us.
As
I
long
hope
as we
not.
don't have another full-blown pandemic, we should be very, very fine to get.
Well,
this
and
done.
if we do wind up, for example, with the CMRPC, you're gonna find that they have a lot of knowledge about town already, which puts them a leg up on competition for taking on this grant, because it's the type of thing they do, and they have an in-depth knowledge of our community, the businesses, the people, the contacts, the infrastructure. They already have a real good handle on that, which they possibly get them, but we'll see what the proposals come back as, but.
Right. I talked to Janet about it, and we wouldn't, if we went with CMRPC, we wouldn't need to get an RFP from them, because they are considered like a municipal organization, so you don't have to bid with another municipality essentially. So that's one of our options, and I did, like I said, I talked to Janet on Thursday about all of this. We had a very long conversation, so I'm going to talk more with her about what something like this would cost, what the time commitment would be, and all of the details associated with that, and then we can decide whether we want to do that or if we want to go with a private third-party consultant.
Like the Collins Center, do they do these things?
I believe the Collins Center does it. I know there's public organizations like that, or there's also VHB, which is a private planning organization, which it gets pricey, but
Well, I would say that Janet obviously is a Barre, was born in Barre, raised in Barre, schooled in Barre, and now is the executive director. I mean, she has, you know what I mean, she cares about what happens here.
oh yeah.
And so that's a good thing if we do want to do that. It would facilitate moving along, because you don't have to do a lot of.
It is something the board has talked about since as long as I've been on the board,
Yeah.
so it's nice to see this finally rolling along.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get somewhere with it, because it's a direction the town needs to have, and once it's established,
Yeah.
hopefully we revisit it every couple of years, and it should be a living document that's
Yes.
forever updated, not let it go defunct
Right.
and start from scratch. And if we, if we keep that steering committee alive and, put in alternate members as they choose to be, maybe when we form the committee, we'll give it a year term or alternate terms on it. And we can continually replace personnel on that and make sure that committee stays alive. We get new blood into it and keep this document living as it should be.
Well, the challenge always is, especially with the finance committee, because show me your budget and I'll show you your values, right? And so you're going to have a finance committee that's not driven by this is the way we always have done it, by looking at a new direction in managing, our resources. And that, I think,
They've been coming around.
well, no, I'm not saying they're not amenable to it. It's just very different for all of us to,
When Andrew first started working here, he had a different way of budgeting and looking at things, and there's a lot of friction, I think, at the beginning
yeah.
with the finance, and both Matt and I and the board had friction with them over it. And I think it settled out well, and they appreciate the new ways, they've embraced them, and they really are looking at things differently now and willing to learn new ways. So I think they're going to be great with this. I really.
No, I'm not saying they're not going to be great with it. I'm just saying this is very different. And in
Yep.
order to keep it alive, all of us have to be committed to managing the
This has
business,
to be part of that plan.
the business that we do in ways that, certainly are congruent with the plan. And that takes time for people to get into. And then, of course, a pandemic can kind of slow us down, but hopefully we won't see that as ugly head as bad as it was in the past. So anyway, I look forward to a busy time for you, Jessica.
Okay, meeting minute approvals. We have meeting minutes from July 19th, which we held off and had some
Yep.
changes done. They are now ready for approval, as well as our meeting minutes from August 16th. I would look for a motion on those two.
I would-
move we approve the meeting minutes of July 19th, 2021 and August 16th, 2021.
I would second that.
Motion is second to approve these meeting minutes as listed here. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. They are approved. We'll kick down to correspondence here. There's a few things I want to read through that I received in emails. I think I forwarded some to you. I don't know what you got, but we have one from the state about a bridge project.
Yep.
We all
Colebrook
have that, we
Road, yep.
understand they intend
Yep.
to, it's not our cost, it's their cost. They'll be doing the bridge, and which bridge, over the Prince River? and
Yeah,
which
It's
road?
the one
Colebrook Road.
right by Palmer paving.
Yeah, yes.
Yep.
Up on Colebrook Road, is it?
Heading up by
Or is it-
Felton Field.
Southfield, yeah.
Yeah,
The one on Colebrook?
yeah, right at that hill.
Colebrook,
Yeah,
okay.
coming up
Okay,
that,
making
off
sure.
of
So-
Valley Road.
So the state will be working on replacing that bridge, and we've been notified as
The
such.
traffic will be misdirected for 2 years, 2 years, 3 years probably.
And we did get a notice that, of appearance for CCP, as we talked about before, when their building permit was held up, they were gonna file in court. They have filed, but they're not proceeding, they're waiting to see if they do have their permit approved. Mr. Andola told me that they intend to drop those, but they just
Yeah,
didn't want to let us know.
I think it's important for us to understand this is potential litigation. We shouldn't be discussing it in open session.
Letting people know that we haven't noticed it was filed, that's all. That's, all right. And the last thing I wanted to bring up was the minutes request.
Yep.
That's in-house
Yep, that's it.
thing. I think minutes typically are requested through the town clerk, so we're
Right.
not going to get into that too much.
And we will follow
and-
the open meeting law as required
Right,
on
and
documents.
as far as that whole letter here, our emails are public record. That's
Exactly.
why everything I have here in email, I can share as far as,
Yeah.
like I did. The statement of the litigant, that's part of my email, which is public record, once it's in this email. It's not in a secret document, it's not hidden, it can't be hidden. And nor can this. So the in-house chat here, Jessica, do you know anything, was there a meeting, was there something reported to the CCC? Do you know for a fact, or do we only know what we see in the letter here?
I only know what you can see in
Okay,
the letter there.
okay, so,
I would suspect that we should make sure that the planning committee and/or anybody else understands the Freedom of Information regulations and follow them.
right, and to that end, I believe, any of our boards and committees, we have the obligation to make our minutes in a timely manner and to be turned into the town
Yep.
clerk, where people can go to the town clerk for the public record.
Well, yeah, if,
And once again, this is a request somebody had about a planning board minutes they were looking for.
right.
I don't know if they got the minutes, if they didn't get the minutes, and we just CC'd in the email, so I wanted to bring it up here and make sure we all understand what's been going on. As far as what they're claiming in this letter is in the minutes, I don't know, I haven't seen the minutes, I haven't heard about the meeting, so there's no point in getting into any of the discussion about that.
But Jessica, if you could follow up and ensure that our boards and so forth, and with the town clerk, that we are following the Freedom of Information Act as required. I believe there's a 10-day
10 days.
response requirement, and we should be fulfilling our responsibilities, not necessarily this board, but whoever is supposed to be.
In
Sending
the
that.
event there is anything legal-wise that comes out of these questions and things going back and forth here, I would like this board to direct Jessica to hold off and defer these issues to us directly before taking on any legal issues, if something comes up. It should go to town council.
Absolutely, yeah.
And any decision-making on any of these legal issues shall be left to this board. There's nothing that should fall in your lap that you should try to answer or do without direction from the board. But certainly, anything should be directed to legal counsel
Yeah.
if that's the case. And rolling on the same topic while we're on it, which is going to roll into my selectman report for my request is, at annual town meeting, we had bylaws presented that we supported and passed for the recording of meetings. I would like next meeting, not this one, to discuss how we're going to proceed on this, because we need to get going, talking to department heads, or whatever we're going to do. I want to talk about this next time. So everyone think about what we want to do, what we want to propose,
Yep.
our thoughts on how to record. what department heads we want to talk to, what groups we want to talk to, how we want to get their input.
Yeah.
And I want to have a good meeting on this next time.
Could I ask, Greg, that our consultant who, works with us on, providing us with the wiring and the, be present, just so he can say, I can't do that.
We can certainly ask if he can, or he can also Zoom in.
He can Zoom in.
And he could Zoom in if he wanted to, or he could be
That'd be
here.
great.
And that would be a
Because
great idea.
he'll be
Jessica,
able
make
to
sure.
answer questions that I wouldn't have a clue about.
But this is something I definitely want on our
Good.
meeting for next
Yeah,
agenda.
because we got to April 1st is a time we'd like to be up and running.
Right, so we need to have this ready, because we did want to have a special town.
Geez, you gave us a day off in August, but you're making us pay now.
This is how it works. We relax, well, July and August.
I know.
But we got to get our nose to the grindstone. We have a lot coming up, but this is one thing we have to get
Yeah,
moving.
agreed.
We put it off till now. We said we'd let it wait till things died down, but we're all going to start putting some time in on that.
Yep.
It's in there. It's a law. The towns, we said it's going to go in April. We pushed
Yep.
that, so we've got to make sure we follow
Yep.
up with what we said we're going to do. And I don't.
Well, it'll be
I don't want us
much
to-
better for the public once it's up and running.
Absolutely, and the issue we're talking about, these emails going back and forth, is exactly what that's
Yeah.
about. People looking for meeting minutes and what they think they heard about a meeting. They're trying to find out, we don't even know.
Yeah,
And until the minutes are out, we don't know if there was a meeting, what was held or what was said, or
yeah.
it's all, hearsay until it's done.
Okay.
So if people are curious, they can request the email. Jessica can I've sent it forward. She can send the email to anyone who wants to see it. It's nothing I want to get into here because it is hearsay, and we're not going to get into hearsay at the meeting. That's it for me talking about things for now. Either of you have separate reports, issues you want to bring up now? Now is the time.
I just have information, and Jessica can obviously add to this, but we're continuing to work with our finance committee, looking at various financial management systems. And I believe we have a 3-hour presentation on the 14th, is it? In the afternoon.
3 hours, oh boy.
Yeah, was it 3 hours? I mean,
I'll have to look.
yeah, it was, because I said, ooh, I was putting that into
presented
my...
needs to sweeten that short in a little bit.
The first phone call hasn't been impressive.
Oh, yeah, it was 3 hours.
Yeah, the first phone call was not impressive, so I'm hoping that this is going to be a whole lot better.
Yep, yeah, and then you saw the one for next Thursday as
Yep.
well, right?
Yep.
Radar,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're moving forward with that, and having some progress in reconciliation, and getting things much closer to where they need to be.
Which is the goal of all of this.
Yes, it is. So,
It'd be nice to be able to at any given week, within a week, say, here's where our numbers are from last week.
exactly.
And I don't mind it taking a week to get everything finalized and everything tucked in, but,
Well, we should be
What are we
able to
getting?
look at quarterlies and really feel confident.
right, and we should be able to,
Agreed.
at any end of any month anyways, within a week at the end of the month, we should be able to know pretty much how that month
Yeah,
stands.
yeah.
To be unreconciled for 3 or 4 months is
No.
frustrating. I'm sure.
You're being kind.
I'm sure it's frustrating for everybody involved.
Yeah.
I'm not finger pointing or accusing or blaming, but I know for everyone involved in our finances in town, anyone that's collecting money, handling money,
Mhm.
and updating the books, and writing
Challenging.
checks, it's frustrating for everybody. And I'm sure they're all on board with this, and they're all ready for the fix.
They've been very, very, very
And-
amenable to the work, and they work very hard, and I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think after the first of the year, we probably will have defined, and, we'll be able to give to the finance committee what it's gonna cost, because upgrading to a single program will cost us some money, there's no question
And I'd
about
like to
that.
publicly thank all those employees working
Absolutely.
with us, because we understand it's above and beyond, and when it's done, it should make everyone's life easier, it should make our books better, and it's gonna work us towards our bond rating, which we've been
Yes.
pursuing for years.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that, and I thank you as well for the extra
Oh,
work going in.
no problem.
I know it's a lot of extra work, and I appreciate it. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Dylan?
I would like to thank Charlotte Guru and others who have been working down at the Barre Plains Common. I don't know if you've seen our new flagpole and our flag and
I
our
have not been
and
down
our
there.
trimmed bushes and so forth.
Nice.
I've also had a request from a citizen who represents supposedly 8 servicemen who served in Vietnam who are not on our monument. And so I'm going to forward that information to the, I guess, Legion, but if we have to put those names on, it'll cost a little bit, but we should probably think about that, and I think I would pursue that with the charitable foundation and perhaps if
Absolutely.
necessary. So just to let you know that there are some people who've been left off who no longer live in Barre, but who served and were Barre residents at the time. And I do have some of those names, and that person is, and I do have a citizen.
Definitely reach out to Dennis as well. I'm sure
Yes.
he'd be very interested.
And also,
in getting
I do
into
have a person in the community who has anonymously said he will pay for this if it is something that either we can't, and I think we can. But anyway, so I will talk with Commander Musnicki about, he's not a commander, he's the administrator, Veterans Administrator,
Yeah.
about this. But I mean, there is a feeling, a sense that this information has been known and we're dragging our feet. And I said, well, I don't think we've ever known about it. But, my goal would be to try to push this along for next Memorial Day, so we get those names up on that board somehow.
Yep.
I think it's gonna have to be an added plaque, because I think it's pretty full. But I'll check with some Legion types and.
Or a new plaque that's inclusive of everything.
Yeah,
And then
well,
the old plaque would move to the Historic Society.
well, the problem is, though, it's right in that granite, so it'll be a little challenging,
Yeah,
but we'll figure it out.
we'll figure it out. Well,
Okay, but anyway, Barre Plains Common, there's been tree trimming down there that's been done. There's been, the new benches are contemplated too, and I know that there've been some pricing for that. And so there's a little citizens group that's been very, interested in working hard with that. And we did spend a good deal of time on September 2nd with the flag guys and so forth. And so I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it looks very nice. And so it's
that may be a thought for some of the money we have coming in, is doing something more with the South Common.
yeah.
There's been a lot of citizen effort, like the gazebo going up was, that was people giving their time and
Yeah.
efforts to do that, to build that. And so, the public has done a lot to put that forward, and we should support that as well.
Well, I certainly have been physically supporting
Right.
that on
And
my
a lot of
own, for
people
sure.
have, I think, so
Yeah.
if there is a project, maybe that committee would think about that they want to get done, that we can do for reasonable funding.
And I think we
Maybe
want to
some
look
of
at
that money can
we
be
want to
used
look at a
towards a
playground in
public
that
open
High
space
Plains
like that.
area too, if we can do some upgrading on that maybe next spring.
Yep.
But one other issue now, let me think, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up, but it escapes me, so.
I know, I always say I'm going to make a list, and I get here and I forget.
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
it is.
anyway,
I knew most were in the email, that's why I popped open the email, I could get through the couple I had to hit there.
okay, I guess it's Dylan, or it's,
I think it's Jessica. Dylan said he was all set.
Yeah, I'm all set.
okay,
Jessica.
So I want to kind of revert back to the conversation we were having earlier about the internet. So I've been talking with Spectrum about our options because one of our issues that I've mentioned in the past is that we have not only a need for the fiber internet throughout town and, internet expansion, but we also have some needs on the municipal end. So specifically, we have this technology thing called the Meraki environment, which provides all of our internet security, so we don't get basically attacked by cyber warfare or what have you.
Cyber attack.
Yeah, cyber attack, there you go. So it really protects us on the municipal end, and that environment is expiring at the end of this year. So part of our conversation with Spectrum included just a really comprehensive package of including all of our municipal buildings on the fiber network, and then also providing that Meraki environment to upgrade it for the next 3 years. And so I do have some cost proposals for that. And like I said, I also have the cost of what we spend annually on our internet services, which is about $25,000. But over 3 years through Spectrum, it would cost, and get rid of our internet costs, it would cost $171,000, which it's a significant increase from what we're just paying for internet, right? But it's not just internet that we're paying for also this cybersecurity, which I'm still just waiting on getting a breakdown between like how much, what will we have to pay after the 36 months? Like, is this 36-month deal just paying for the hardware that's going in, or is it going to be a sustained cost through the future? So I'm still trying to get some details on it, but it is something that we'll have to act on relatively quickly. At least not necessarily the fiber end if we don't want to go that way, but definitely the cybersecurity piece of it, because if it expires in December and we only have a limited time frame to start building up that new environment, you know, we don't want to leave ourselves vulnerable come the end of December. But this is a way that we can cover all of these costs through ARPA as well. So we would get rid of our internet bill for 3 years, and then that
So the
would,
100,000 isn't an annual cost, it's a one-time?
it's $171,000, and we can split it up over 3 years, or we can spend it one time. It doesn't really make a difference if we use it, if we use the ARPA money for it, because it's not something that we have to
Is it-
appropriate.
So we're basically 60,000 a year, just short of 60,000 a year. So we're a $35,000 fee for the upgrade and for the protection on top of what we're paying for
Well,
it.
I would say that this is Spectrum's offer, and
Yes.
I would really seek some expertise beyond, at least
Right.
me.
I've
I'll tell
been
you.
working very closely with our IT company that we use. And so Rutland, this has been kind of a project that's going between Rutland, the dispatch, and Barre. And
Mhm.
so they're trying to create a municipal network that spans both the towns and the regional dispatch center. So Rutland has already agreed to this, and they're just waiting to get either a yes or a no from Barre. And again, I don't expect you guys to make a decision tonight. So they can either proceed or try and schedule to do Barre and Rutland.
We still share a server with Rutland, right, where they're backup and they're our backup. So this type of decision, it's strange, it's not mandated between the two.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know what I think I don't want to, IT is not my expertise, but I don't want to go too far
Nor mine.
in
Nor mine.
saying that I think the Meraki environment, it doesn't matter if it's built by Spectrum or
Yeah.
the guys that talked to us earlier.
It's like
all the
buying,
same.
it's like buying LifeLock.
Well, that's what I'm saying, would they have a proposal for the same?
Well, that's what
Because-
I think.
Because if that's the case, we finish your cable at Town Hall here, you know, to the Henry
Well,
Woods building.
I think it's important to, if we're moving forward with a much more aggressive plan, that we try to incorporate this decision into it. I
Right.
mean,
In
I'm
the
not
mean-
saying I have
In
an
the
idea.
meantime, is this something we can extend 6 months or a year on our current plan?
Well, I mean, we
we
still
have to
have,
sign
what,
a whole new
4
contract?
months? We should be able to get some insight either from Matrix or other companies and just say, what about this, or other towns? Rutland is just kind of moving in this direction. What's Sterling doing? What's Shrewsbury doing? What's, Holden doing? Because if it's like something that,
But it's not like we can wait 4 months and just turn a switch, we have to have
well,
something.
no, I'm
ready.
saying, yeah, but in the next month, we could find out what are these other towns doing? Because everybody must be, either already done this or trying to do some upgrades.
And why is it we can't extend our current contract?
Because it's probably, it doesn't support the cyber invasions that are happening, so.
Right, so I think, and again, I'm no expert here, but the current infrastructure that we have, it expires. It's not
Yeah.
something that we have like a contract that we can extend, but it goes offline.
It's like,
Whatever is built there.
it's like
just-
Windows 10.
Just done. Yeah, there you go.
It's
That's
gone.
kind of a good analogy where it's
They don't
like,
support it anymore.
it's not supported anymore, and then we become vulnerable to cyber attacks. So that's,
Yeah, so, no, I'd just like to know what are the other towns doing? Because obviously a lot of them are in the same spot, and, what are they doing? And it probably don't have a lot of options, but
right. So I just got an email back from her 2 minutes ago saying.
from her who?
Our Spectrum representative.
Oh, okay.
So she said the Meraki networking environment or equipment runs with the dedicated fiber that connects from the police station as the hub and then back to the rest of the other locations being
Mhm.
our other buildings. It all runs together, and they could lower the bandwidth, but it would need to be fiber instead of the current coax infrastructure that's currently in place. And then she wants to have a meeting with me tomorrow to talk about bandwidth and lower internet costs that way.
Well, I would not go back to coaxial cable. I would
No.
definitely not
No,
do
Yeah,
that.
we're trying to go the other way. so
Yeah.
Yep,
All right.
so they're definitely not,
Let's see where it goes, what
Yeah.
you'll find out, and definitely see what some other towns have done maybe, and we'll get back to this again.
Next
Next
couple
meeting, we'll
weeks,
put this
yeah.
back. Next meeting's gonna be a good meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll revisit this again next time.
And then I would say, other than that, tomorrow I'll be at a annual meeting with other town administrators. We're gonna talk about ARPA, CARES Act. We have representatives from the state coming to give presentations to us, so I'm looking forward to getting back in person. To
Oh, you're gonna be in
meetings.
person?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Wow,
This
good.
is, I think, the second meeting I've had since I've started here, where I'm working with
No,
other people
I
in person.
think next week they're
people.
going back to remote for those.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
I kept a straight face for 2 seconds.
Yeah, scared me for a second,
Well,
but,
let's hope that
I was
doesn't
gonna say, I
happen.
haven't been able to watch the news today, so what did I miss?
No.
Other than that.
Nothing good about COVID, sadly.
Yeah, I talked with the interim Hubbardston town administrator today. Their permanent is in Afghanistan and Kuwait. But, so he is talking to us about potentially sharing veterans agent services. So currently, Hubbardston shares their veterans agent with Westminster. They have an IMA, and it's kind of split where Westminster has 10 hours a week for VSO, and then Hubbardston uses 4 hours a week. So I did talk to Tony Musnicki about it. He's gonna get back to me on his feelings on taking on that additional workload potentially. But I want you guys to know that was, I was approached by Hubbardston about, because they're interested in sharing services with either Barre or, they're looking at other options as
Is
well.
Tony paid hourly for that, in set hours, or how is that
No,
working?
just still a standard stipend, isn't it?
Just a
Annual
stipend.
stipend.
We just give Tony a stipend.
Yeah, so that's gonna be, he's gonna be involved in that, what he's
Oh,
willing to do
yeah.
and what kind of stipend he's gonna need.
Well,
Yeah.
what kind of time commitment it would be, because maybe he's not interested in it.
He might not, right.
I don't know.
Right. But I think it is an important conversation
Yes.
for us to have, just because Tony is absolutely wonderful, but I'm always thinking, he could tell us tomorrow that he wants to enjoy retirement with his wife, And so I'm,
Well,
those are just
the other
kind
thing to
of-
consider, if we have multiple towns want to do it, is do we take this on as a new position in town, make it a part-time job with the town, and,
Well, we'd have to, certainly.
and then they'd pay their fees for the
Yeah.
other towns, and we'd have to enter another intermunicipal agreement if we do that.
Well,
Kind of like the
But-
building.
Well, I
But
think
it's
that's-
certainly
yeah.
something to consider
Yeah,
in
if
the
Tony's
process.
interested, yeah, I mean,
Right.
and if he's not, I mean,
How long does he want to do it?
how
Should we
long
be
does he
doing
want
that
to do it?
anyways?
Yeah, right.
But, okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
Anything else, Jessica? No? Other than you want to get your plates back?
I just, yeah. I don't want to drive my dad's truck. Yeah.
Sandy, anything you want to throw in and add?
Nope, good.
Try to include you when I remember to.
Move we adjourn?
That's a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Motion is second to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night, everyone.
Okay,
What do I have
Jessica, I
to
wanna hear about the
sign
dog.
before I leave?